Welcome to the Adventurous Minds podcast, examining fitness and wellness through the lens of outdoor sport and adventure.
Hey everyone, you may know Doozer from YouTube. His channel is full of self-documented adventures around the globe and brings positivity and fun everywhere he goes. Some may call him a YouTuber, but we like to think of him as a professional adventurer. Doozer manages to balance being a world-class athlete as well as his own cameraman, producer, and editor, and speaks to millions of people a year through his channel. Today we sit down to learn about his unconventional path to a career, what he's learned along the way, and get a little bit of that infectious Doozer energy. All right, Ryan, thanks so much for being here. It's great to finally make this happen.
Whoop, whoop. I'm psyched.
And congratulations on the book launch. I know that happened, 2 days ago or 3 days ago?
Yeah. I have a book. It's amazing. I never thought it would happen, but here we are.
It's insane. I can't wait to get into it and talk all about it. But it's pretty cool to have you here because, these videos primarily, or this podcast primarily streams on Run TV. And, we first put one of your videos up on Run TV years ago. So it's pretty cool to be full circle and sit down and actually talk to you. I mean, we've spoken many times, but briefly on the phone about this or that. So it's cool to kind of get a little deeper.
I love the opportunity, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So I kind of like to go backwards a little bit at the beginning of these, just so we can kind of get context for who you are, where you come from. And so can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to grow up in Boulder?
Yeah. Born and raised in Boulder. I have two brothers and a sister, fairly big family. Growing up in Boulder is, I think, unique. At the time, you don't know anything different, but now looking back on my childhood, I'm like, oh, I lived in outdoor paradise. That's pretty cool. And that's probably what shaped who I am today. You know, growing up in a town where there's people who have climbed Everest multiple times and elite athletes and triathletes and runners and swimmers and kayakers, everybody's here because it's a beautiful place to live and train. I think that rubbed off on me, I got into running at a very young age. My elementary school always had a yearly 1 mile race at the end of the year. And that to me was my Olympics. I took it really seriously. I fell in love with running. And that's what kicked off a lifetime of loving movement. The Boulder race is in Boulder. It's a very well-known 10K race, 50,000 people. Some of the best in the world come out to run this. And I started running that when I was 6 years old. I've now run it 30 plus times. And that's how it all happened. So growing up in Boulder was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, my brother went to school there. I almost went to school there. My parents live out there now. I'm a massive Boulder fan.
Well, I think it's time for you to move to Boulder.
I know that's kind of the hot topic these days. It's like, when am I going to move there? I would like it to be very soon.
Okay.
But that's also, it makes a lot of sense. I'm sure it was, and even more so maybe back then than it is today, but that outdoor community really exists there. And I can totally see how that would rub off on you.
Absolutely. And the famous gold medalist Frank Shorter lived and trained in Boulder. That kind of put Boulder on the map for distance running. And Frank to me was my hero. A lot of young boys idolize football players, but Frank Shorter was my guy. And funny enough, I became really good friends with his son when I got into high school. And so I got access to Frank Shorter. I saw his gold medal and his silver medal, and I was like, I want to be you someday.
Yeah. And seeing something like that at a young age really kind of hits you because you're like, all right, I can see a path forward from running or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
So you were really into running, but did you get into biking at a young age, or did that come later in life?
Yeah, I always liked biking. Biking to me as a little kid, I'll never forget the day my dad took off the training wheels and I was just riding and I had that sense of freedom because that's what a bike is. It's freedom. And all of a sudden, I'm a little kid where I'm used to only being able to walk very short distances in the neighborhood. All of a sudden I have a bicycle and I can ride all over town. And I loved that feeling. And it's the same feeling that I still love today.
Yeah, I can see that. And so when you kind of first kind of got your ounce of freedom, whether it's from bike or just getting older, did you kind of have your eyes set on traveling, or like what were you interested in kind of as a young teen?
I grew up in a family, single mom, 4 kids. We didn't have much money for travel. I always joke that the first place I ever visited that was far away from Boulder was Cheyenne, Wyoming for a soccer game. And to me, that was so cool because I was visiting another state. It was a big deal. So I didn't really ever think that traveling was an option because it's not something our family had money to do. In high school, I loved learning about other countries and cultures and nature and landscapes all over the world. I loved the Discovery Channel and nature shows, and I that was how I traveled back in the day. I traveled through TV content. And I think towards the end of high school, I realized, okay, I'm going to find a way to travel. I really want to see what it's like. Cheyenne, Wyoming is cool, but I want to see a little bit further away than Wyoming, and that's kind of when the bug hit me. I studied in Sweden after I graduated from high school here in Boulder. I got a scholarship from Rotary International, and that changed my life. I lived with a wonderful host family, fell in love with the Swedish language and culture, and made so many good friends that after that experience, that entire year, I was like, okay, I want to keep on doing this. I want to find a way to keep on traveling.
You managed to figure it out.
And I figured it out. Whoop, whoop.
So that's cool. I didn't know about Sweden. So do you speak Swedish?
I am actually pretty good at Swedish. I lived with the host family. They spoke Swedish to me. I went to school in Swedish. I had a Swedish girlfriend. Swedes are very good at English, so it's easy to go to Sweden and not have to learn Swedish, but I really made a big effort to learn Swedish. And I still today will read Swedish newspapers online and listen to Swedish music, so I like to keep up with it, and I've been back to Sweden many, many times.
Cool. Yeah, I really want to go. It's pretty high on my list. I've never gone to any of those kind of Nordic countries. They
Yeah,
seem so cool.
it is cool. In the summertime, sun stays out till midnight. Wintertime is the opposite. So I recommend summer.
Roger that. So you go to Sweden and then you went to CU, right?
Yep. I went to University of Colorado. So I graduated high school, went to Sweden for a year, came back, started going to CU. And my junior year, I traveled around the world. I somehow finagled some scholarships and some study abroads. So I lived in Guadalajara, Mexico for a semester. And then I did a semester, like a traveling semester, where I was in Beijing, Kathmandu, and Moscow for about a month each. And that was new and exciting because Sweden is great, Europe is great, but it's not all that different from the United States. Pretty similar culture. You go to Kathmandu, it is a different world. And it was like, whoa, this is like walking into a National Geographic episode. Everything is different. I always tell people, the culture, the language, the architecture, the food, the religion, everything over there is different. And that's what really, I don't know, it got me excited to keep on going.
I can totally relate to that. I can remember when I went to Japan, and that
Yeah.
to me was one of those trips where I was like, "Wow, this is just so different than everything I know."
Yeah.
And it was every aspect of it, from the architecture to the people to the food,
Yeah.
and it's almost like intoxicating because you just want more of that. You want to see more things like that.
Yeah. And the people are so wonderful and friendly. And to me, that's my favorite part of travel is connecting with other humans. I like beautiful landscapes and I like checking out cool museums, but it's the people. And I've always fallen in love with just connecting with humans around the world, whether or not I speak their language. There's always a way to communicate.
Totally. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Um, so going back to so you go and you travel around, you're doing these programs, and then you end up graduating in broadcast journalism, right?
Yes, correct.
And so you're kind of aligned at this point to kind of go down the TV host
Hmm.
route. Is that right?
That's right. So I thought it'd be cool to be like a local news anchor or something or a reporter. And I did an internship at the NBC station in Denver when I was a senior in college. And it was fun and exciting. And I was in the studio. But then I realized very quickly this is not the kind of storytelling that I want to do. Local news, a lot of times, is depressing. If it bleeds, it leads, they say. And I was like, I don't want to make stories like this. I want to create inspirational long form content. And I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I knew that I didn't want to be on local news. No offense to people who work in local news. There's a place for everything, but it's not what I wanted to do.
Yeah. No, totally. And I mean, looking backwards, it seems like even that kind of brief travel that you did probably really informed that experience. Like you kind of wanted to replicate or tell those stories because they're probably much more exciting to you.
Absolutely. And I would watch travel shows. This is when Travel Channel was coming around, and I was like, "Oh man, how cool would it be to be like a TV host and travel the world and share stories and essentially, do what I was doing but record it."
Yeah. I mean, and that's it's really cool. We'll kind of we'll get into YouTube later because it's a big fascination for me. But
Yeah.
it's really cool to see how you have like quite literally translated um, that portion of your life into. I mean, I don't you don't like vlog consistently or something like that, but the you have a vlog style to your videos, and it's
Yep.
basically just documenting your day to day adventures, which is
Totally. And the
awesome.
goal the goal with all my content since day one is to create videos that inspire people to go out and challenge themselves in some way, shape, or form. And that's always been the goal. And my tagline is get out there. And out there can mean anything. It doesn't you don't have to be an elite athlete or have all the most expensive gear. It's just about getting outside. And then once you get outside, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean I mean with anything whether it's, adventure or a new job or relationship whatever it is, but you have to like just jump in. Like at some point you have to just do it.
Yep.
Um and you definitely get that vibe from your videos, which I think is part of why you have such a strong community and audience. It's cuz when you're watching your videos, you can't help but feel your excitement and passion for life and being out there, which is
Mhm.
one of the best feelings out there.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not putting on a show when I make these videos. It's when you see me excited, I'm really excited, like it's genuine. And I've always wanted to create content that is real and relatable to other humans. I talk about the highs and the lows of adventures and everything in between, and that's important to me because we live in a world where you can look on Instagram or YouTube and you always see people just like killing it on top of every mountain, nothing phases them, but that's not reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've watched your videos for a long time now, and seeing you talk about the lows is also one of those things that kind of makes me trust you because
Yeah.
the you're right. You see these people that just only talk about the highs and the great moments of what they've done, and at a certain point, it doesn't make you necessarily feel that good. Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
want to be relatable. Yeah, I want to know that you're not always smiling or that things aren't always amazing.
Yeah, I've talked about reasons why I quit drinking alcohol. I've talked about heartbreak on my channel. I talk about, preserving the environment and, social issues that are important to me. So yeah, when something's important to me in real life, I talk about it on my channel.
When what's that like kind of sharing your life so transparently? I mean, this is this podcast is kind of my first
Yeah.
attempt at being someone in the public, so anyone can watch this.
Yeah.
And it's a little scary at times knowing that like whatever I say is just out there forever. I mean,
Yeah.
the level of transparency you have, what's that like?
Well, first of all, you're doing a great job.
Thank
So
you.
be psyched. And that's the big thing is just having the courage to do it, and that's the first step. And it's interesting putting my life has essentially been online for my whole career since about 2005 when I started writing articles for my local newspaper. And I like sharing stories. I mean, that's the goal, to share stories that inspire, but sometimes, you know, the bigger you get, the more haters you get, and that's a weird feeling to like have somebody write something that's just straight up mean. And you're like, how could you be mean to me? Look at my videos. Like I'm just trying to spread like sunshine and happiness, and here you are ripping on me about how I talk or my voice or how I look or whatever. So I'm used to getting some meanies out there, but the overwhelming majority of people who watch my content and comment are very nice. And I put a lot of effort into responding to almost everybody that reaches out. I spend hours a week responding to emails and comments and questions from people because it's important for me to really build that community and to really help people. Again, my videos are made to help people, to inspire them. And if they have questions about gear or the weather or whatever it is, I'm going to take the time and respond to you.
That's awesome. And I mean, and that's what builds your community. That's what that's why people show up day in, day out, is they can, not only one of the cool things about YouTube and kind of a lot of social media is you feel like you can kind of build a relationship with somebody that you've never met. But when you
Yeah.
get that second tier and then you actually can interact with them a little bit,
Yeah.
that really goes a long way.
And people are always blown away. They'll write me an email and then I'll respond to them and they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't expect you to respond to me." I'm like, "Really?" Like, well, okay, here we go. I'm just a regular guy that has a camera and films adventures. So it's not like I'm living in a mansion on the hill with 17, security guards and people monitoring my email. It's like, I'm just a dude here talking on a computer to you.
So this is a good spot to kind of go backwards a little bit to get to the biking again. So you went down after school to Honduras for the Peace Corps, right?
Yep. I graduated from CU, decided that I didn't want a real job, although the Peace Corps was probably the most real job I've ever had. And I went down to Honduras, lived in a small village, and worked with kids. My project was youth development. And I had worked with a lot of Mexican immigrant youth in Boulder beforehand. And I loved those experiences. And I chose the Peace Corps because I really wanted to do work that was long form. I was going to be there for 2 years. I could really become part of the community and see through some projects that take longer than a week or two. I'd done some spring break trips to the Dominican Republic where you're just there for 7 days, and that's all fine and dandy. But I really wanted to do long form, sustainable work.
Dig in a little bit.
Hmm.
Yeah, nice. So you kind of rounded that experience out and decide to bike back to Boulder.
Yeah.
What
So,
went into that decision?
well, my mom didn't like the decision, but my experience in the Peace Corps was absolutely incredible. I loved working with the kids in this village. I became like a older brother, uncle, mentor type person, and it really filled my heart with a sense of joy that I'd never really had before. And then when it came time to leave, I didn't want to just get on an airplane and fly home and be back in my house in a matter of about 5 hours. I thought that would be too fast. It was going to be reverse culture shock. I wanted time to think about the work that I had done and have time to dream toward the future about what I wanted to do next, because there was no next at that point. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. So I thought, hey, no better way to do this than to sit on a bicycle for about 8 hours a day for 4,000 miles through Central America and Mexico. So that's kind of how it came about. And I found an American expat down there in Honduras who sold me a pretty nice Trek bicycle for $500. So I had the bike, and then I got a little trailer to carry all my gear, and I'd never done anything like this before. I was a total newbie, rookie. I said goodbye to all the kids on my final day, tears streaming down my face. Very heartfelt, beautiful moment. Told them all I'd come back someday, and off I went on my bicycle on a grand adventure.
Little did you know that's kind of what you spent the rest of your life doing.
Yeah, and I didn't know it at the time. I just at the time I wanted to go on a big bike adventure and, see what the open road was all about. But I didn't know that this was going to become my career. Not in a million years that would I've ever guessed this is how it was all going to work out. There was no YouTube at the time, or if there was, it was just beginning, and it was definitely not down in Honduras, so I knew nothing about it. I did film the adventure to make like just a documentary, so I had my little Sony Handycam down there, and I filmed the adventure all the way, and interviews with people. If you watch that video, it's on my YouTube channel. The style is very similar to what my new stuff today looks like. It's just much lower technical quality, but it's me. I might be a little louder and more obnoxious like 25-year-old Ryan, but it's me.
That's so cool. I haven't watched that one. I need to go back and see it.
Yeah.
Um, so how long was that period? Like, how long did it take you to get home?
Took 3 months to get home. It was about 4,000 miles. I would ride, 70 to 100 miles a day and then camp on the side of the road or camp in a small village. A lot of people brought me into their homes and fed me meals. I mean, it was very heartwarming to go home this way, because before doing the trip, so many people warned me against it. Don't you know how dangerous Mexico is? You're going to get robbed. the truckers are going to ride you off the road. Wow, all this like doom and gloom. And I was like, no, they're not. I love these people. And it turned out to be just amazing. Every single day was awesome. And one of my very good friends came down and met me in southern Mexico, and we rode the rest of the way together. So it was a good brotherly bonding trip. And I absolutely loved it. I always tell people I'd never felt so alive in my life as I did on that trip.
I think, yeah, I've had a couple experiences like this in my life, not nearly as long,
Mhm.
but those trips where you wake up every day and it's kind of there's like problem solving involved. You're thinking on your feet, and it's kind of just an adventure. You're riding across Central and South America. I mean, like
Yeah.
that type of adventure is so useful for like your own personal development, and
Yep.
it's such a good feeling too. I,
Yeah.
I crave that kind of daily adventure feeling.
hmm It feels good to move your body, one in a physical way and to challenge yourself a little bit. And it feels good, like you said, to problem solve. And at the end of every day, you're like, sweet, I navigated all the way here. I met some nice people. I got some food. I figured it all out. Now I'm going to sleep under the stars. Life is good. And then tomorrow I get to do it again and again. And every day is a new adventure. I'm not on a specific itinerary. There is no tour guide. I am figuring out every step of the way, all the way home.
And so I'm sure like on that 3 month period, you didn't just come up with the master plan, like I'm going to go to YouTube and this is what I'll do. But did this become like the backbone of realizing like I can have my own adventures every day if I can find a way to document them?
Yeah. So at the time, it was like you could make a documentary and maybe get it into a film festival. And that's really how things were seen back then. So I made a little 5-minute trailer of my adventure when I got home, all the highlights of the adventure. And I submitted it. At the time, there was a show on the Travel Channel called What's Your Trip? And you could submit like vacation footage. And I submitted this video and they chose it and it played on national TV. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what I want to do for the rest of my life. But I want to be more like a travel TV host and do this for a living. And that's when it really the bug got in my head about, okay, maybe I can work for the Travel Channel or something.
And that's kind of the route that you took, right? Like
Yeah.
you did go into more formal entertainment.
Yep. So I worked for Travel Channel for a bit. This is right when online video is becoming a thing in 2006, 2007. They're trying to hire more people that can just run and gun, and one person can do the job of an entire film crew. Back in the day, technology really made this possible. So yeah, they would send me places where I would shoot and edit and host these short segments that they would then put on their website. And to me, that was super exciting. I was like working for the Travel Channel.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, at the time, I'm sure that's kind of the as good as it gets in a way. You get to travel around, do your thing, and people pay you.
Yes, if it was like a full-time gig, it would have been a dream. Unfortunately, being a freelancer is very hard and frustrating. And, I got a handful of these jobs from time to time, but it wasn't often. I didn't have a steady paycheck I also worked for my local newspaper in Boulder doing weekly adventure videos, and I got paid $50 a video. So I wasn't making a ton of money. I was living in mom's basement. I was 26, 27 years old. Most of my friends had moved on and had houses and wives, and here I am like trying to eke out a living as a creator, not really knowing where it was going to take me, but I knew that if I kept following my heart and my passion that it would lead to something.
And it's really admirable, particularly because you were a little bit ahead of kind of the creator economy that exists today. I mean, you were kind of at that cutting edge of when it was starting to turn into something that you could live off of.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of funny when I look back. I was definitely one of the early like YouTube travel vloggers out there.
And I mean, now I don't know what it actually is, but it seems like one of the biggest genres of content that's made these
It's
days.
it's a big one for sure. Yeah. And back then I also was like a travel blogger. Like there was somewhat of a travel blogger network, and there were some websites called like Trip Films where you could put your travel videos on this website and have these videos play, and that was like a curated spot for travel videos. Because at the time YouTube, I don't even know if YouTube had subscribers back then. It was just a place to put your videos online and people could watch them. There was no monetization at that time, and I couldn't really see the end goal with online video. In my mind, I was like, I want to be a TV host. That's how you make a living. So putting my videos online was just a way for me to, build up like a resume site. Like if a casting agent said, let me see what your content looks like, I would just send them my YouTube link, not knowing that someday YouTube would become my career.
Yeah, and I feel like there's a handful of people kind of in your boat where they were just like, "This is I'm just going to put stuff here," and then consistently enough, and now they've kind of built like a whole life and career out of it.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it's probably it's such a desirable um, life if you can get there, but I mean,
Mhm.
it's just very difficult to do.
It's
Um,
very hard. And the road has been very slow. I'm 43 years old now. I've been doing this since I was 25. I would say only in the last 2 years has it really all come together as far as financially. Like I can actually make a pretty good living doing this. For travel, like back in the day with travel channels, I might get a job that would pay me $10,000 or $15,000, which is a lot of money, but then I wouldn't get another one for 6 months. And so I'm constantly going to casting calls, waiting by the phone, pitching ideas, trying to get sponsorship money, getting really, really close, and then getting a no, and everything comes crashing down. And then you build up another idea and start pitching that around. And so it's like endless game. And it got so frustrating, the TV entertainment world, that in 2016 I gave it up. I'm like, I'm done trying to make this work. I've filmed so many pilots that people told me were going to become series and TV shows and that I'd finally made it. And then for some reason they wouldn't get picked up. And here I am back down at, level zero and just wondering what I'm going to do with my life at age 35. And that's when I really went to YouTube. This is when Casey Neistat started becoming like a daily vlogger and showing people that, whoa, you can like build up a channel and build up an audience and make a living doing YouTube. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. Goodbye, TV world. I'm going to build up a channel, hopefully big enough to the point where I can make a living.
I mean, it represents such a I feel like an underrepresented part of being a creator or YouTuber or whatever it is how much entrepreneurship goes into it, and
Yeah,
how many, like, the highs and lows are just, it's kind of like riding, I'm sure, a 3 month bike, like traveling from
exactly.
Honduras to Boulder. I mean, you got to
Well
go
said.
up and down all the time.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's I always it's a roller coaster and it's frustrating. And then you look around at other people who are successful and you're like, why am I not like them? And then you start beating yourself up. You're like, maybe I'm annoying, maybe I'm too old, maybe I don't look right, and then you start really like digging in and like being mean to yourself, which is no good ever. And so I went through all these waves of emotions for many, many years. And I still do. It's not like I'm set for life. Like I'm on this path.
and that's, one of the parts, one of the great things about your channel and your videos is like you do feel that kind of like compassion and passion and excitement for life.
I have a great group of friends and community, and that really lifts me up when I'm having hard days or I'm a little bit depressed. Going outside, just like I take my own medicine, get out there. If I'm having a rough day, if I'm frustrated, going outside makes all the difference. I can go outside for 30 minutes, run around the mountains here in Boulder, and feel totally refreshed. And then it kind of like reminds you like what's important in life. Yes, my career is important and making money is important, but really, being here, being present, connected to myself, connected to nature, connected to my community, that's what matters.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And we the people that really watch these videos, at least that we know about, are kind of just getting into fitness and kind of looking for that early spark of motivation to keep them going. Getting through like the first 30 days of like consistently working out is really difficult. And I
Yeah.
think seeing content like this really helps them because it's inspiring.
Yeah, and that's the goal. It's to inspire, to show people what's possible.
So okay, there's one thing to be mentally really strong, but you also are a top tier athlete doing these very hard endurance rides and runs. And how do you also stay in shape through all this, like the actual physical side?
I've always been an athlete ever since I was a kid. So I run a lot, I bike a lot. I don't have like a specific strict running or biking schedule to keep me in line. I'm just always doing something. And I've never had a car in my life. I ride my bike everywhere I go. So even when I'm just going on an errand in town, I'm getting exercise. So I mean, I always have a baseline level of fitness where I could jump into an ultra marathon tomorrow and do it. I might not do well, but I could do it. And it's for me, like I love being active. And at the end of the day, if I haven't gone outside, I'm just like, bleh, I don't feel good. A lot of us can relate to that. And so I'm always doing something. And then if I have a race that I'm really focused on, like this year I did the Leadville 100 again. I really took that seriously and I trained a lot specifically for that race.
Um, and you just kind of brought up a point about not owning a car. Is there's biking everywhere, running everywhere. There's quite an environmental impact that you have by not owning a car. Is that kind of a part of who you are?
It really is. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been very environmentally minded. I'll never forget. I don't forget what age I was. I'll never forget. And then I don't even know what age I was. I was a young boy. I was watching a PBS special about Earth Day. And they talked about Mother Nature and pollution and what humans are doing to the environment. And I was like, oh no, this is horrible. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to preserve this beautiful planet of ours. So I remember making a pact to myself when I was a young guy that I'm never going to drive a car because to me, cars were bad, cars were pollution, you know? And so I've stuck with that. I ride my bike everywhere. I have a vegetarian diet, which has a low carbon impact on the planet. My apartment is solar powered. I invested in solar panels, so I try to have a very low impact on the environment. But at the other end of things, I do fly in airplanes sometimes. It's impossible to be perfect. I give money to reforestation projects every month to try to offset some of my airplane travel. And I'm always thinking, what can I do to reduce my impact? you know I go grocery shopping.
And that's all you can really ask for too. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
impossible to say like you can't get on a plane or these ridiculous standards, because it's just hard in modern life. If you want to move around normally, like you're gonna have to do some things every once in a while.
Yep, absolutely. And I have reduced my airplane travel mainly because of the pandemic, and I haven't really gotten back on a crazy international schedule. And I was just going to say, like, I go grocery shopping here in Boulder at a store where they sell everything in glass reusable jars. So you buy it, you use it, and you bring back the jars, in an effort to reduce plastic waste. So I try my hardest, Mother Nature.
So what was the pandemic like for you? I mean, I feel like everyone had different experiences.
At the beginning, it was a little scary. Just like everybody's like, whoa, man. For me, I had some travel jobs lined up and those all got canceled. And I was like, oh boy, how am I going to continue on making YouTube videos if I can't travel? So I really focused on a lot of like hyper local content, things that I could just do outside of my door. And, the pandemic was really actually very good to me. People were looking for inspirational content to watch online because we were all home watching everything on Netflix. Once they finished Netflix, then they go to YouTube. And luckily, some people found my channel. And another thing, there was a worldwide bicycle sales boom all over the place. People were buying bikes like never before. So people go home, they have these new bikes, they go on YouTube to try to find information about bikes and bike packing or whatever, and they found my channel. So my channel actually did really well.
I could see that. I mean, I myself, I was, at one point, I was actually in Colorado. I was with my family, and I was kind of sitting around like, what am I going to do? And go to YouTube and go click around and see what's out there.
Yeah.
So, did you, with your book, when did you kind of write the bulk of it? Did you spend any time during the pandemic writing, or like when did you get into it?
Well, so the adventure was 17 years ago now, 2005 that I actually today is December 15th. It was 17 years ago today that I finished the bike ride. That's crazy. Thanks for reminding me. I essentially wrote the book in the moment. I took very detailed notes and journaled every single day on the bike ride with hopes of someday writing a book. And when I got home, I started writing and I got about 100 pages in, and then I got distracted with video and I never went back to it until about the pandemic. You know, I was like, okay, what else can I do with my life right now? Oh, I have all these journals from the bike ride. Maybe I should finally look at those and create something out of it. So I'd say the last year and a half is when the book actually came together. Thanks to those journals. It would have not been possible to write the book without those journals.
Yeah, it's cool that you did that. I mean, that takes some serious discipline
Yeah,
to really sit down at the end of every day, or whenever you did it during the trip, but to actually write down
totally.
your experience, that's not an easy task.
No, especially when you've been riding all day and you're tired and you just want to like go sit in your tent and like do nothing. You know, I'm like, okay, I got to write this stuff. And I'm so glad that I did, because there's a lot of moments that I completely forgot about on the bike ride that I would not have remembered if it weren't for the journals.
And when you were looking back, going through the journals, is there anything that you kind of realized or remembered or learned or something that kind of stuck out?
You know, yeah, I go into a lot of my emotions. I talk about the people that I met and the conversations that I had. You know, there's a moment later on in the trip where I met this cute girl in Chihuahua, Mexico at a bar. And I don't even remember that moment. But I guess she was like, come on, you stupid gringo, give me a kiss. And I was like, I have no game. I'm like, oh, you want to kiss me? You know, and that's all written in my journal. I'm like, wow, I don't even remember that moment that I kissed this pretty Mexican girl at a bar in Chihuahua, Mexico.
That's a fun find.
Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, I'm very excited to read it. I love any reading journeys, like a story about a long journey, 3 months, a year. It's always so fun because you can see somebody develop through their writing over that time and
Yeah.
through the things that they do. You can learn so much about what that experience was really like.
Yep. And I think it's interesting that the book is now 17 years late, but the perspective that I have on life now really made the book a lot richer and full of heart than it would have if I had written it right when I got home. It's a little bit different of a book now because of the wisdom that I have over the last 17 years.
Yeah, and I think it's important for any story. I mean, there's a lot of it's great to like have us or make a memory and then tell the story quick, but there's a lot of value in going and making a memory and then sitting on it for a little while, giving you time to reflect. Because
Yeah.
what you find out in that kind of when you're reflecting is can be pretty profound sometimes, particularly in something like this, where this was no small journey.
Yeah. And this journey, I'm so grateful for it that I actually did it and I had the courage to do it, because it's led to an amazing life. If I had just gotten on a plane and flown home, I don't know if I'd be doing the things that I do today for a living. You know, I might be working at that local news station.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. There's a Steve Jobs quote somewhere out there that's like you can't connect the dots looking forward, but looking backwards,
Yep.
makes sense or whatever it is. But and
I love that one.
in something like this, it's so tangible. You can totally see how the things that you did led to exactly where you are today, which is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
But
awesome.
yeah, I hope you like the book. I'm excited to put it out there into the world. I'm really proud of it. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. You know, it has photos of my life back then and being a Peace Corps volunteer. So it's really, I mean, even if it doesn't sell well, I'm just really proud that this is something that I created and that I can show my friends and family, for the next however many years.
And it's physical. It's going to live on, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
exactly. Yep.
So I feel like we're kind of getting towards the end here, but what are you up to today? Like what are you working towards now?
YouTube is everything I do now, and I'm really grateful for it. I love it. My channel has grown to a size where I can make a living from it. I can tell the stories that I want to tell. I have total freedom to do that. Whereas on the TV world, I never really had that freedom. It was exciting to be on TV and Travel Channel, but a lot of times I was just reading other people's scripts that they had written for me. And I was just a guy that could memorize lines. But now with YouTube, I get to share my heart and my soul with the world. And it's fantastic. And I get to interact with people and respond to comments and questions and talk about things that I feel are bringing value to the world. And to me, that's as good as it gets.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. Not to be completely unrestricted by anyone else's opinion but your own is pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is. And going forward, I'll still be doing bike adventures and running adventures and, showing off the beauty of planet Earth.
Awesome. Well, I know I will be tuning in. I'm sure anyone listening to this is definitely going to have to check you out if they don't follow you already.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Ryan. I really appreciate it. This was a fantastic conversation.
It was. Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Adventurous Minds. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you want to stay up to date with the latest releases, you can scan the QR code or find us on Instagram at Adventurous Minds Pod. See you out there.